In today's webinar, you will learn how site selectors and companies are using GIS to select your communities for investment, how to best serve your local businesses, and ways to outcompete other communities. Hundreds of economic development organizations already use this technology, and research shows that most will have it in the coming years. You will learn best practices from around the nation, simple ways to effectively implement a program, and how to evaluate the best GIS technology based on your specific needs. Our speakers for today's webinar include leading experts in the field of web-based GIS, including Anatolia Ubalde, co-founder of GIS Planning, Barry Waite, Business Development Manager at the City of Carson, and David Meehan, Policy Analyst at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Anatolia Ubalde is CEO of GIS Planning, Inc., an economic development internet service company, and ZoomProspector.com, an online site selection and business intelligence service. Mr. Ubalde works with organizations to foster enhanced economic development using internet technology. His company's software strategies serve over 11,000 cities across the nation. His work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Businessweek, Inc. magazine, Forbes, Fortune, and the New York Times. Before GIS Planning, he worked for years in local economic development.
Thank you. So I'd like to put the subject of GIS websites for economic development within a context and a framework that's relevant for economic developers today. And to do that, I'll start at the beginning with a brief history. So the first web-based GIS for economic development launched a number of years ago in the suburb city called Vallejo, which is located in the San Francisco Bay Area. And that website was developed by GIS Planning. This is actually an image of that website. And when it launched, it was recognized in the Wall Street Journal, which brought a lot of attention to the program. Looking at the website now, it's obviously much less sophisticated than the modern web tools that are available today. However, many of the core features and ideas have continued to live on and are what's present in modern-day web-based GIS for economic development. So this project, which started in Vallejo, started propagating and replicating all across the country with economic development organizations in many states implementing this technology. So today it's quite pervasive. Now let's look at it across time. So from the time that it started, the first one was launched in 1998, you really see a hockey stick of growth on this chart showing many hundreds of economic development organizations which have implemented it. And this chart takes you to 2009. So going beyond 2009 to this year, what's happening is that we're hitting a tipping point for GIS on economic development websites. The chart that you're seeing in front of you comes from research that was done in collaboration with the University of California in 2008, and which is shown in the book Economic Development Marketing, Present and Future. There are three areas that are being measured here: demographic reports, site selection analysis assistance with GIS, which is what we're talking about today, and also interactive maps. In green is what economic development organizations across the country had in 2008. So you can see 24% had demographic reports, 33% had site selection GIS, and 33% had interactive maps. In blue, what you're seeing is what these economic development organizations across the country are saying they plan to implement between 2010 and 2013. So you can see there are more organizations that are implementing these new interactive GIS features than previously had them up until 2008. So the majority of all economic development organizations are going to add web-based GIS features to their websites within the next 3 years. There's another important thing to understand as it relates to this trend, is that your competitive advantage as an economic development organization comes from you having tools or features or data or services that other organizations do not have. So up to 50%, you really have a competitive advantage. Beyond 50%, what happens is you have to play the game of catch up. You're starting to add features and tools to your website, not because it's a competitive advantage, but because you're already at a competitive disadvantage. You're doing what other organizations are already providing. The problem with waiting until implementing something that everybody has is there's no advantage to you, but it costs you the same amount. So your great window of opportunity is right now. By implementing this technology before other organizations have it, you can maintain a competitive advantage for the near future. This is a post that I saw on LinkedIn from Ronnie Bryant, who's the CEO and president of Charlotte, USA. He posted that the whole site selection process has become so data-driven, we come into the process much later. Well, the research that came out of the report that I mentioned to you earlier agrees with this analysis. So this chart shows you the different phases of site selection done by corporate real estate and site selection consultants. And this is a national survey of those professionals. The red line shows when these professionals visit your website to do research, and in blue is when they actually contact a person from your organization to talk to them and gather information. What you can see is the vast majority of initial contact is happening through your website. That's where they're getting their information. And they aren't making as much personal contact until they've gotten to the point where they're doing an analysis of the short list. Here you can see in the third phase, the evaluation of a long list, there's 53% who make contact with a staff person, but 76% who make contact by getting information from your websites. What this means is that there's a 150% advantage for your organizations that provide the required website content that these businesses and consultants are looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Ubalde. Now we have Barry Waite, who is the Business and Employment Development Manager for the City of Carson. He has worked for the city over 22 years, including stints as the city's GIS manager, in the city manager's office, and as a city planner. He teaches GIS for the USC School of Policy, Planning and Development graduate program. He has a master's degree in public administration from USC and a GIS certificate from Cal State Long Beach. He is a former council member for the city of Lomita and serves on a number of boards and commissions.
Hi, I'm Barry Waite, and I'm pleased to join you today from the city of Carson, California. I'm the business development manager here for the city of Carson, so let me tell you a little about the city, a little about our GIS, and then we'll talk about economic development. So first, let's talk a little bit about GIS, just so we know what we're talking about. GIS is layering data to put it together to make some sense out of it, to make some sense out of how these things relate to each other. So what's a GIS? It's a computerized system designed to put all of this information together in a way that you can analyze it in a way that it relates to each other. So we're going to talk about some examples as we go through that I think they'll make it clear. So here's the sorts of questions that we look at. Where is it? What is it? Or what is it like? What's happening with it over time, especially? What are the spatial patterns that relate to it? And what happens if we do this, or what happens if we do that? That data can go from global to local. You might be looking at a very small level. You might use GIS for something as small as working in a single store. For store layout is a really fascinating example that I saw. There's a reason that the milk's in the back of the store. We all know that, to push the consumer to go through the entire store. Well, but how does a consumer move through the store? What products should you put next to each other? Now that's becoming more of a science. So there's the very local level and on up to the global level. And you can use your data at different levels of geography, depending on what's appropriate. So a little about the city of Carson. We've got a population of about 100,000 in 19.1 square miles. We're located in Los Angeles County. We have a diverse economy. We are mixed between industrial We have a large oil refinery. We have a California State University, Dominguez Hills, which is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. We also have large commercial sectors. We have a large warehousing sector because we're in LA County near the Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach. We have a lot of the logistics industry located here. We have electronics manufacturers. We have a very diverse economy. And we have a diverse community from an ethnic standpoint. There's no such thing as a majority in this town. And I think of our census tract, only one of those even has an ethnic majority. So it's a very diverse community, and we're very proud of that. And then a little about Carson's GIS. We are an ESRI shop. We have ArcInfo. We use Business Analyst Online, which is a fascinating product that I use on a regular basis. We have a lot of ArcGIS server applications. Our HP plotter is still plodding along, and I think that's about 6 years old now, but still doing the job. And I think you can read the rest of it there. We have a staff of whopping 3 people. I'm actually in economic development, so I was formerly the GIS manager for the city, but I've been in economic development for 3 years now. And we usually have 1 or 2 interns on staff doing special projects. And then a little about me. As I mentioned, I am the city's business development manager. I've been with the city for 22 years now, almost 23, coming up on that anniversary. In addition to working for the city of Carson, I teach the GIS for Policy Planning and Development class in the USC School of Policy Planning and Development at the graduate level. I teach that 1 or 2 sessions a year. So why do we do economic development? Well, at least here in the city of Carson, sales tax is a big chunk of our revenue. Related to that are licenses and permits. The state's always taking away some other form of money that we have. Economic development's part of good jobs, stable community. We want to retain jobs, keep people working. And economic development is a proactive approach to dealing with a community's problems. It just makes sense. And the big 3, getting businesses, keeping businesses, and expanding businesses. Or to put it in another term, we say business attraction, business retention, business expansion. But this is what it really boils down to. So why do it with GIS? Well, I'm throwing a big list here at you, but I'm going to look at some of these in some more detail. It's quite a lengthy list, and I could put a lot more than this. But let's look at some examples. We want to use maps because they work better than text-based approach, and I'm going to show you an example in a second. We can contrast with other communities to say, here's what we have that they don't. We can demonstrate how our community has unique strengths. In our case, the location in relation to the ports, the airport, Los Angeles, and so on. Infrastructure, target areas, and there's an example of that tabular data. That's hard to read. It's hard to follow, hard to understand, and not just because I scanned it badly. Good old-fashioned, simple maps. Well, maybe they're not so old-fashioned. We've been doing maps a long time, but as far as the strength and power of them is really something newer. And these are maps that we use all the time here in the city of Carson, especially redevelopment, which is very important to us. Demographics, we use that on a daily basis. And that last one, traffic volumes, is terribly important to us because businesses want to know how many cars are driving past a particular location. And as they say in real estate, it's all about location, location, location. And these are some things that relate to us in Carson. Every Mercedes-Benz that comes into the western U.S. comes through the city of Carson. We have the ports nearby and the airport. And there's that traffic volume map. And, of course, you can't see my finger pointing to it right there. Let's try the mouse. There we go. You can see we have a freeway here, and just over the edge of the map, there's a freeway here and another freeway here. So businesses want to know what the traffic volumes are along any particular street. And this is just the major roads, but we can also show them along smaller roads in town where that may be important to their business. They may either need a high or a low traffic volume. We can put that together with other data to show them what they want to see. Industry clusters, birds of a feather flock together. Here's some example in the electronics industry of names that you know, but there are a lot of other names that you don't know. They want to be located similar to, or in proximity to similar industries so that they can draw from the same employee base, use the same suppliers. It's like I grew up in a farming community where it was partly a farming community because they had the infrastructure to support it. And it was really big in the lima bean industry. There's an exciting one. But then once a certain number of the farms left the lima bean business, then the infrastructure to support it didn't make sense anymore. And the whole lima bean business folded in that region. Now, we're not doing lima beans here in Carson, but we do have a lot of other industries that flock together and it makes sense for them. We have other industry clusters that we have are the defense industry electronics, which is different from consumer electronics types of operations like these that you're seeing here. And we also have the chemical industry, where it makes sense for them to be together. Aerospace, lots of parts of airplanes are made here in Carson. Analysis. Now, I think this is the important one. You can use GIS to understand yourself. We always like to talk about using GIS to explain your community to another person, but isn't it best to understand where you are yourself first? You can identify your underserved markets and niches, development sites, redevelopment areas, and this is one of my favorites, overlay projects with other activities to avoid conflicts. Things like if you're going to be holding the Country Western Festival at Del Amo Park, well then maybe you shouldn't be slurry sealing the street 2 days ahead of time. So we try to coordinate our activities, and the map is really the only way to do that. And we do that with online GIS. And clustering projects is the same thing, clustering industries. If we're going to be doing some road maintenance, let's put together the water main maintenance. Let's put together other things that are going to disrupt the neighborhood. Let's do them all at once and get out of people's way. And labor pool is a big one. Companies want to know where they can find the employees that they need for their industry if they're going to be coming to your town. And here in the city of Carson and Los Angeles in general, the labor pool is one of our biggest selling points. And then you can also see how you did. I always like this slide, just reminding you that in GIS, the economic development, the data that we use, talking about the traffic volume there, that data is gathered by the traffic engineer for different purposes. They don't do that for economic development. They do that for street planning, signal synchronization plans, and so on. But that data is useful to us as well. So gather the data in one place, use it all over the place. It's just thrifty, good common sense. I want to talk a little about buying data because there are some data sets that just makes more sense to buy from someone. Demographics, an awful lot is available through the Census Bureau, but you may want projections and so on. That's a good one. In your community, you may not have street data available, or you may want a larger area because it does not make any sense in economic development to do things only within your borders. You need to look beyond that. And let me tell you, one we're working on right now is we're doing an analysis of local hiring, and we want to determine for our redevelopment projects where people are coming from, and we want to hire more local workers. We have a terrible unemployment rate here in construction, so we want to get those construction workers working here in town. So I am using business data that I bought. In this case, I bought it from ESRI that describes where the businesses are within a, I believe I did a 7-mile radius, which is a huge chunk. That's probably at least 5 million people in that. That might be an overstatement. At least 3 million people within that 7-mile radius. It's a big area, and it reaches most of the way to downtown LA, captures Long Beach, and then to the ocean to the west as well. And so we're using that data to find local subcontractors who are outside the city of Carson but are likely to hire Carson workers. So if we just took the companies that are in Carson, we might have somebody who works for a firm that's just outside of Carson, and we want to make sure that we get them as well. And then environmental data is a big one for us. We want to know about leaking or underground storage tanks. and things like that, so that we can be, again, proactive and go to those property owners and see what we can do to help them out. And here is our GIS planning application. We've been a GIS planning customer for a long time. I won't even guess what year it was, but this is a wonderful application. Yeah, we were on an early version of it, but hey, it has really met our needs, and it's a great way for us to stay in contact with the businesses, especially the brokers, because if we notice they haven't updated their listings lately, we'll give them a call, find out, oh, maybe they have a new broker in there representing the Carson area, so this is an opportunity for us to make a contact. We get plenty of hits on there, and the way that we know is when it's down, we get phone calls. So that's good to know, and that has really been wonderful for us. The City Council directs people to this site, and it's called carsonsites.com. That's carsonsites.com. So go ahead and have a look at that. And matter of fact, we are recently updating our demographic data on there. So a very handy application for us. And I think that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Waite. Now we present David Meehan, who is Policy Analyst at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Meehan has a bachelor's degree in Political Science and Business from Hanover College. In the past, he has worked as Special Assistant to Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels, where he was responsible for traveling with the governor on official state business. Mr. Meehan has since joined the team at the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. His duties entail special projects of interest within the agency, including, but not limited to, acting as an advisor to the Secretary of Commerce on issues related to the federal stimulus package, Director of Compliance, and liaison between the agency, the Department of Workforce Development, and the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. Mr. Meehan has also been responsible for rolling out the state's new GIS sites and buildings website.
My name is David Meehan. I work for the state of Indiana. I work for an agency called the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. We went through the process a while back of trying to choose a new forum in which we could host our sites and buildings. And the reason why we went about this process is because we had an interface that was built by a research arm of a local university. And we wanted to go with a company that this is what they did for a living. This is how they put food on the table. It's how they, so they fed their families, and that's how they make their money. And this company that we went with, GIS Planning, had been around for years. They were kind of pioneers in the whole field of site and building databases, and hosted, and their offices are in Palo Alto, California, Silicon Valley. So you don't get any more professional in the computer world than that. But they've been great ever since. One of the key factors in choosing GIS technology was quantity and quality of data. It was important for us to provide our website viewers with the depth of data that they needed to make business site selection decisions that would lead to investments in Indiana. The ease of use of the website was also an important factor in our deciding which solution to pick. GIS implementations can be very complex, and we wanted to deliver an exceptional and intuitive user experience. So next, industry experience. GIS is a sophisticated technology, and it was important for us to find a company with the most experience with these kinds of implementations. As I mentioned before, we wanted to get a company that this is what they did for a living and not kind of supplemental to a completely different mission. GIS planning has over 98% of the economic development market, and this was an important factor in the decision making as well, because it shows that their technology is the industry standard that almost all economic development organizations are embracing. So next, truly integrate with our website. Indiana already had a powerful website in place, and actually we went through, we're going through a process currently of revamping our website, and we wanted a really sharp property interface tool in that as well. When you don't list the whole thing, there's a whole phrase of something like you don't buy a Corvette and then put like, I don't know, like vinyl seats in it or something, or put like a tape player in it. I mean, you gotta if you're gonna spend that kind of money and take that kind of time to make a good website, then you want to make sure that everything looks sharp. So the next one is best user experience, which means more choices for your user. We provide the maximum choices for website users with functionalities that will really allow them to dynamically interact with the data and find what they need, not just run PDF reports. Comprehensive solution and expertise. Well, in addition to having kind of some of the best technology in the market, we wanted a long-term partner that would really be there to help us with all assets of a successful website. We want someone who provides help in reaching out to expanding and relocating businesses. GIS Planning not only promotes the state of Indiana through their national site selection website, zoomprospector.com, they also market us through their integrated network of marketing partners like Site Selection, Business Facilities, Business Expansion Journal, and International Economic Development Council. On top of providing all this added value, they also had the best price. Actually, we were extremely surprised by the price that was offered to us in the selection process from a company that had such a solid share of the market. To be able to offer a price like that is probably easier for them to do it because they have more customers than probably some of the other smaller companies that are probably their main competitors. So now we'll go through a tutorial of the website. As a state organization, it's important that we provide businesses with the ability to search for all the communities in our state that could be a good match. That provides equal promotion to all our communities, and it's the way that site selectors think. If you're a local economic development organization, this may not be as important to you because you simply want the business in your community, but it is still useful to see how this can be done. To accomplish this, you can go to the Indiana Site Selection website. From here, you can search for communities to find all of the different communities that match your need. I'll show you that here. You can do a search by city or county. Let's say Evansville. It'll automatically generate it for you. In this case, let's search for a community with a population between 20,000 and 150,000. Let's enter some parameters for labor force. To 20 to 40. Transportation. To domestic airport in the county. So enter nearest interstate. So let's specify household income. As you can see, you can do a powerful multivariable search and immediately get all the communities that match those specific requirements. You can also scroll through all the matching community results below in this very cool iPhone-like interface. I can also use the search button to search for buildings. But since I've already searched for communities that match my site selection search, I can only search for properties in these matching communities by selecting the Find in Communities menu and selecting Search for Buildings under these communities links. Now, if someone is doing a general search for buildings, they can enter very detailed requirements within seconds, and it will give you all the matching results. You can view more information about the property directly on the map. You can also view all the available details about that specific property. You'll notice that we can look at the map of this property many different ways. Now let's try Street View. This gives the business the opportunity to take a virtual tour of the area from anywhere in the world. Now let's go back to the main map. You also have the flexibility to save just the property or the reports around that property. For example, the labor force or demographics report. And of course, you can choose to save all the reports around that property. This is very important because it allows users to gather the exact information they need to find the perfect location that they need. You can also share any of these reports by sending a link or via any of the most current social media sites. Notice how fast these reports get created. But what's even more is that all this happens within our own website. When we evaluated other technologies, we didn't like that they pushed you off of our website, and they pushed the reports in a PDF form or non-web page format, which is really not a helpful experience for the site select. Also, it is extremely slow and not user-friendly for the goal of analysis. We knew that would turn off our business prospects. Now you can also see that each property has a wealth of information around it. If you click on the Labor Force tab, it automatically shows you the number of establishments and employees within 10 miles. But if you change your mind about the distance, it's as simple as entering a new number. You also have the option to pick drive times instead. And the way it shows results right on our website is really the fastest and most user-friendly that I've had the experience of in the market. Now if you take a look at the demographic report, there's a lot of data. We looked at other options, and this report really had the deepest data, which was important to us because that's the whole point of the technology, to provide businesses with the deep data analysis they need. Our data is the deepest and the broadest of what I've experienced of the websites that are around. We also get our data from IBRC, which is the individuals who had created the website for us before. IBRC is an acronym for Indiana Business Research Center. And they do something called Hoosiers by the Numbers. But I think this data that is offered by GIS Planning is a little bit more in-depth because they use a private company to do it, and they collect data from multiple sources, not just kind of census level data. You can also click on the chart link and automatically a graphic shows the demographic data. It's another way to communicate the story of the data to the business. Some people like the hard numbers and others want a more visual way, like graphs and charts. You can also do some really rich data overlays. The demographic reports you have seen so far are hard numbers or graphs. The data, demographics, and businesses change in different locations. So to see demographics spatially, you can click on population and you see a visual layout of the concentration of the populations. The household income. What was important for us was the ability to do this at the most granular level of geoanalysis, the census block group. County level just didn't provide the kind of quality data we wanted to give to our users. For some of your regions, retail may be important, and here are the things that we can show. You can also see a display of all businesses around that property. Again, you can easily change the distance. The interaction between the map and the report is completely dynamic in real time because the reports and maps are generated right within our website. That's why I was able to easily change the distance. Here's another example. I'll click on a business in the report and the map zooms to that location. Now I'll click on a nearby business and a push pin is placed there and I see additional information about that business. As you can pick a specific industry, and you'll only see businesses within that industry. You can also define unique characteristics of that industry. For example, let's only select businesses with 10 employees or more and with revenue over $1 million. Now we map only those businesses. Or you can search by business name. Let's go back and search for all the Starbucks within 50 miles of the location. Some businesses want to do market research for business investment in Indiana. That is not related to an available property. They may simply want to understand where businesses are by name, industry, or other variables. They can do this directly by clicking on Search. Thanks for your time, and best of luck in searching for the right partner in your GIS system.
David, thank you so much for a terrific demo of your website, as well as your insights as to what makes for a great and effective web-based GIS for economic development. Now I'd like to summarize some of the points that you made, which are really the priority factors so that economic developers can have the most effective GIS website possible. The first is a user-friendly and familiar experience that has a wow factor to it. And you could see that with, as David slid the properties and the reports across the screen using that iPhone-like experience, or the dynamic features of having all of the reports generated in seconds. As user-friendly and familiar as you want it, you don't want to compromise on the power, features, and tools of a true GIS analysis. You don't want a lightweight website that doesn't get the hard work done that businesses want to do to consider investing in your community. Also, at the end of the day, the reason that these businesses are coming to your website is to gather data and information about why they should locate or expand or relocate or start up in your community. So the amount and quality of data is critical to achieve that goal. A fourth is that data analysis integration within the website is important. You saw that all of the reports all happened on the fly right within the Indiana website. It didn't push you out into a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet. It didn't take many steps. It all happened within their website, which is the best user experience. Also, there's value of being connected to a national system of site selection analysis and properties, and being networked and marketed through the media, focusing on the corporate real estate community. The more places you can be found, the more places your community can be promoted. You really leverage the power of these existing networks. And finally, the experience of the vendor and seeing what the industry of economic development is embracing. I'd like to focus just on one of these 6 elements, which is the amount and quality of data. Because after Indiana launched their website, we were very curious to see how it ranked, how it compared as a benchmark compared to other states with dissimilar web-based GIS systems. And so what we discovered is that Indiana, which is shown in blue, and then there are 2 comparison states, one in red and one in green. We won't say the names so we don't embarrass those states. But you can see that Indiana had twice as many demographic reports as these other states and had more than 3 times as many demographic categories within these reports. So it's a significant advantage for the state of Indiana in terms of what they're able to deliver to their customers. So here are 6 priority factors which economic developers can consider when deciding how to have the most effective GIS website.
Now we will move on to the question and answer portion of this webinar. If you have not already done so, please submit your questions in the questions portion of the webinar software. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if we are not able to answer your question in this session, we will make sure to get back to you after the webinar. Okay. And we have one. The first question is, why do you think so many EDOs are implementing GIS on their websites? David, would you like to answer that?
Sure. In talking to EDOs just even yesterday, you have cities up even in northern Indiana who are saying that they want individuals who are coming in, clients who are coming in and looking at their territory, to be able to get a good picture of the properties that are in their area. And they don't want that client to be redirected into competing with properties in other communities. So a lot of local EDOs, we refer to them here as LEDOs, as in local economic development organizations, see a lot of value in having a property interface on their own local sites because of that whole competitive nature of one county versus another county. We like it when people go to the state site and everyone puts in quality information on the state site, because we see a win for one county in Indiana in comparison to a win in for another county in Indiana as a win for the state. But counties, as is your job as a marketer for that individual area, they view that additional tool as an additional invaluable marketing tool for them.
Barry, do you have anything to add?
I would say just one thing is that we we just like to use this as an opportunity to show that, well, somebody's surprised to see we have these advanced applications, all this information up there, and our answer is, oh, of course we do. Of course we have this information. Of course we have these sort of applications available. Of course we can help you. What we're doing is it's part of creating that overall image for the city as being a forward-looking, forward-thinking, forward-acting place. And I don't think that's unimportant. I think we need to keep in mind the sort of image that we're trying to present. So it needs to be an image that squares with your reality, but still, for us, that's been really useful. And I can't tell you how many times we've gotten that wow factor from people where we say, hey, I didn't know that you could do these sorts of things. And we said, well, sure, we do it every day. So for us, that improvement of our image has been an important side benefit.
Yeah, and I'll add an additional point to that too. We have a utility here that provides a property interface for free to people, but a lot of the people I was talking to yesterday was wanting kind of that additional wow factor that Barry was talking about with their own local communities. They're willing to invest more to have kind of the bells and whistles and the level of functionality that is added by GIS planning, despite that tool actually having a certain cost to it.
And it's not like it's expensive, really, for us or for anybody, really. It's a good investment, like you said. And I'm just happy that our elected officials have been always supportive of it, and they speak of it with pride. And we're not that big a city. We're only a city of 100,000, but hey, it's paid off for us.
Okay. The next question is for Barry. We want to implement a GIS in our economic development website. How can we convince our elected officials to approve a project like this?
Oh, I think that's an easy one. Just show them somebody else's, a community that they feel competitive with, or that they feel thinks they're better than them. I mean, let's get the ego involved here. And say, well, look what these other guys are doing. Look at what that neighboring community is doing. And look how they're eating our lunch. At that point, they're going to do it or not. But I think that's a pretty easy one. You lay it out for them just as another opportunity. And, hey, they can take it or not. But if you throw it out there that, oh, sure, we could do this. It wouldn't be difficult to do. It wouldn't be that expensive. Or we could just let the other guys do it. And you know what they're going to do.
Anatolio, this question is for you. Can you tell us more about the National Site Selection website mentioned in the presentation?
Sure, that's zoomprospector.com, which is a project that took us over a decade to make. And the reason for that is because we needed hundreds of clients across the nation to make it credible and useful to the business users. This is why it'd be so difficult for anyone new to try to do this. On zoomprospector.com, we have demographic, geographic, and business data for every community in the USA. So anyone who's on this webinar within the US, we have data on your community. However, only subscribers to the service have properties and local GIS data because we can't gather the local data and promote the community properties with which organizations we have no relationship. We also partnered with the International Economic Development Council on this project, and this is their official service. And we also partnered with Site Selection Magazine, Business Facilities, and Business Expansion Journal magazines to promote the website. So basically, zoomprospector.com is embedded within every one of the media's websites, and this allows zoomprospector.com to reach a larger audience of your target customers and audience.
The next question is for David. How did Indiana gather the demographic and business data?
Well, actually, we didn't really gather our demographic data. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that GIS planning provides all the business and demographic data. The only data that we input into the system is the data that is relevant to that individual property that's being input, and all of our local economic development organizations input that data on a regular basis.
Okay. This question is for Barry. What GIS layers are good to show for economic development?
It really depends on what's important to your community. So in my case, redevelopment is very important. I will be honest, we have some serious challenges in our community with some former land uses. When the city incorporated, we had 75 landfills and junkyards. So we want to show redevelopment areas, which are areas where there are incentives and other assistance available to help out. For another community, what may be important, enterprise zones, it may be important recreation sites. I mean, if you were Anaheim, California, you'd want to show Disneyland. So the answer to that really is what's important in your community is what you want to include as the layers that are available. In our case, we happen to show a lot of layers because we have a lot of things that we consider important, but we also have it so that the user can turn on and off so they can see what's important to them at that point.
And with that, we will conclude this presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, and have a wonderful day.